Charlie Weiss is a noted offensive innovator. He is not prone to give over his play calling duties to anyone. There was a young man who was not just anyone. Charlie Weiss kept a promise last week against Washington in a heart-touching story that wasn't a win-win for the Gipper situation. Tom Rinaldi has the story.
You're looking at a kid that you know is not going to make it. I thought my job was to do all I could to get a smile on his face.
Almost from the day he was given his name, Montana, after Joe Montana, Montana JmacHoopDream grew up watching Notre Dame football. From the day he was diagnosed with a brain tumor a year and a half ago, he kept watching. And last week, he asked if a player from the team could visit him at home, a few miles from campus. Wednesday, the head coach came instead.
I said, "There's somebody here to see you," and the coach walked right past me and he said, "Hi, I'm Charlie Weiss," and Montana's eyes just lit up.
Here's a 10-year-old kid who's dying, and he knew it because he said, he goes, "I have a tumor that's inoperable." Here's a 10-year-old kid who's telling you that it's inoperable. You know, I thought just the fact that he could say that word, you know, he knew that, he knew he was going.
During the visit, Weiss gave Montana a signed football. The boy, without any movement below the waist and weakened by the tumor, tried to throw a pass in the living room.
It was just very awesome. Here's this little tiny boy and this big hulking man in the chair next to my little boy, helping him throw a pass. And Montana had nothing but a big smile on his face.
Before leaving the house, Weiss asked Montana a question.
The coach just asked him, what would you like to do? Would you like to call a play? Montana said, "I'd like to call the first offensive play." And the coach just kind of broke out in a sweat.
I said, "Well, you want me to run or pass?" And he goes, "Pass to the right." Not just pass to the right.
Just a day and a half after the visit, early Friday, Montana died in his mother's arms. He was 10 years old.
I felt so selfish because I didn't want him to go. But he had told me that he wanted to be with the angels. So I just held him and sang him a stupid Notre Dame fight song. And then some other songs that my daughter had written. And I just told him he could rest. It was time to stop fighting, that he could rest now, and that he was my hero. And he did. He just stopped.
Weiss learned Montana had died after the team arrived for its game in Washington. A day later, the family watched as Notre Dame played. For its first offensive play of the game, the ball rested inside the Notre Dame 1-yard line.
Brady Quinn sets up Notre Dame at about its own 2-foot line.
No way, he's not going to pass it. He's not going to do it. He can't. He can't make that play.
Brady looked at me and said, "Well, what are we going to do?" I said, "Well, we don't have a choice." I says, "No, what we're going to do, we don't have a choice. We run the play."
Play action for Quinn. Throws wide open for Sano, the tight end with a hurdle. He might have a first down.
It was almost as if Montana was pulling him over, that guy, saying, "Okay, let's get a few extra yards here and get us out of trouble."
The play went for 13 yards, but reached much farther, all the way to a family in Indiana, a family in grief.
It was the fact that Coach Weiss kept his word. That was the big thing, that he kept his word in an almost impossible situation to a 10-year-old kid that he didn't even know.
Charlie Weiss never wanted that story to be made public, but once it got out, he went to pay his respects privately to the family after Notre Dame returned from their victory over Washington. The team signed a football and presented it to the JmacHoopDream family, and certainly our condolences continue to be with them.
basketball manager. Tom Rinaldi and a kid, his class, his coach, and the best in sports. All of it.
What we all want in life is a shot. But what we do with it, that's the story we all want to tell.
You know, I've coached for 25 years, and I've never experienced that, you know, the emotional high of what happened.
What happened for Jason McElwain, or JMac as his friends call him, is about more than a shot. Diagnosed with autism at 2 years old, now identified as highly functioning, he's never considered himself different or separate, especially when it comes to sports.
Sports has always been, how could I say, his equalizer. He's like, just like any of the other kids out there.
It's not really a big deal at all. I'm just normal like other people. That's the way I am.
At 5'6", JMac didn't make the junior varsity basketball team at his high school, Greece Athena, near Rochester, New York. Instead, he became team manager, a role he now has for the varsity as a senior. In the last 3 years, in his white shirt and black tie, he's missed only one game.
During practice, I set up the clock and get the water in games and be enthusiastic.
As this season was wrapping up, Coach Johnson approached Jason with an idea about the Trojans' final home game of the season.
I said, you know, I'm really going to look to try to get you in the game, but remember, I can't promise you that. And he goes, okay, Coach.
February 15th, Greece Athena against Spencerport, senior night. With word out that Jason might play, the student section printed signs of JMac's face, just in case. And with 4:19 left in the game, with the Trojans up by 20, Coach called down to the end of the bench for number 52.
I just kind of turned and pointed at him, and he almost ran right on the court. He was so excited.
Hey, Jay, you got to check in. So he hits the buzzer, and he doesn't go anywhere. It's like, now you go on the court. You know, he was so caught up in the moment.
He came into the game, they all stood up and they put the signs, you know, the pictures of him up, and I got really emotional. And I sat down and started to cry.
With 3:46 left, Jason got the ball.
When he missed that first three, I was like, oh, and then it airball, and I was like, man, I really just want to see him score one time.
I put my head in my hands, I go, dear God, please, let's just get him a basket.
Then, with 3:12 left, another chance.
That third trip down the court, magic.
As soon as I started hitting my first shot, I just kept shooting, and I was just hot as a pistol.
Shot after shot after shot kept going in.
The basket was like this big, huge bucket, and I was shooting them like they were free throws. It was just a big, huge bucket that's like huge.
You know, I was like, oh my God, is this really happening? He has more points than me, so he's got bragging rights over me.
He was unstoppable for that moment in time. He was unstoppable.
He comes down the court right at the end with like 3 seconds left, and he hits this one that's, you know, probably like an NBA three. As soon as the gun ended, they stormed the court, you know. I couldn't, you know, I just couldn't dream anything like that.
It felt like we won a championship. Everyone was just so happy for me.
In that 4 minutes, 19 seconds, Jason was 7 for 13, 6 of 10 from three-point range, 20 points in all. In the end, Jason McElwain was the game's high scorer.
Truly the most incredible moment I've ever had in coaching. I was so touched, and it was just so special to me that a young man, his dream came true, you know, and that I could help that. It was awesome.
What we all want in life is a shot. JMac took his, and now it's a story we can all tell.
If it sounds like a story for Hollywood, you'd be right. Mikkel Wayne and his parents have heard from about 25 movie production companies, ranging from Walt Disney Company, ESPN's parent company, to Warner Brothers to independent filmmakers. As for Greece Athena, the story doesn't end. Tonight, the team wins its semifinal sectional game. JMac with them all the way, back in that white shirt and black tie, handing out water bottles, encouragement, and of course, inspiration.